India and the Philippines have upgraded ties to a strategic partnership and sealed a raft of defense deals as they mark 75 years of diplomatic relations. The Philippine president welcomed in New Delhi by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, referring to the two nations as friends by choice, partners by destiny. Both sides repeating commitment to a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific. Our trade also a concern with added urgency now to speed up an agreement on preferential trade to boost investment. Ferdinand Jr. on a 5-day trip to India, his first visit to the country since taking office in 2022. The two sides holding joint patrols earlier in the South China Sea. Indian warships alongside Philippine vessels for exercises near the Scarborough Shoal, to which both China and the Philippines have claims. And for more, we have CNA's Bernal in Metro Manila and Neha, Poonia in New Delhi for us. Buena, let's get to you first. Our trade, security and tech. Let's look at defense principally. That string of deals on defense between India and the Philippines.
That's right. A string of deals. That's part of what India calls the Act East policy, which is seeking to deepen India's engagement with the Southeast Asian region. But you see here the most geopolitically relevant are the defense deals, where you have deepened capacity building exchanges, where you have maritime cooperation, where you also have service to service or direct army to army and air force to air force engagements between India and the Philippines. And this all comes as India seeks to position itself as a global manufacturing hub for military hardware, producing those indigenous defense systems that it is exporting to other nations. Now, President Ferdinand Jr. thanked Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the deal back in 2021, between 2021 to 2022, to deliver 3 BrahMos missile cruise systems to the Philippines. And the delivery 3 years hence has not yet been completed, with the Philippines keeping confidential the location of these systems. But you know that India has described the BrahMos, indigenous to India as its name suggests, as having high precision, as having unparalleled speed, as having capacity for trying to evade possible aggressors, which is important for the Philippines as a maritime nation that faces in its west a regional flashpoint that is the South China Sea. Now, these two nations also engaged in what has been the largest military exercise to date, because it was participated in by 19 nations, and that concluded this month. It was hosted by Australia, called the Talisman Sabre exercise. And in those exercises, these two nations as well engaging directly to enhance interoperability.
Well, Neha, let's pick up on what Bernal mentioned there. So the Philippine part in India's so-called Act East policy, which is 11 years old this year, it's an upgrade and a rebrand from the original Look East policy under Prime Minister Modi. The Philippines is a big part of that, because this is India's way of not just deepening engagement, like Buena mentions, but also institutionalizing engagement by New Delhi with Southeast Asia.
That's right. This is something that is increasingly important, given that we're now in the midst of, shifting geopolitical realities, given how the focus, especially for strategic partners for India, like the US, is more on tariffs instead of, on what's happening in the Indo-Pacific. And in the face of increasing tariff threats from the Trump administration, it's also a way, experts say, for India to increase its engagement with this key region, both on the trade front as well as on the maritime cooperation front. So in that regard, Prime Minister Modi saying that strengthening defense relations between India and Philippines is a symbol of deep mutual trust, but it's also a necessity given the sort of developments we've seen on the maritime front in the South China Sea. With this in mind, that defense cooperation was pretty much top of the agenda, and we have seen how New Delhi is now talking about potentially holding more drills in the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific as well. These will be both bilateral as well as multilateral drills that New Delhi will engage in. We are talking about Coast Guard cooperation, port calls between the navies of both countries, as well as capacity building, exchange of training programs and information between their forces. So a way to build each other up and support, maritime drills in the region as well. There's staff level talks, of course, between the defense forces, which is a way New Delhi says to share, best practices and train each other's forces. And of course, defense cooperation when it comes to buying more arms from New Delhi. The Ministry of External Affairs says that was discussed. Manila has expressed an interest in getting more defense platforms from New Delhi. There's talk of India potentially now selling, surface-to-air missiles to Manila, something that could then be deployed in the South China Sea, where it has that territorial dispute with China. And, with that, experts also acknowledge that New Delhi is, entering the fray as far as that dispute is concerned, picking a side, because it's conscious that it needs to be more ambitious in its engagement with this region, and that is key for New Delhi's foreign policy approach going ahead.
Oh, thanks. Neha, Poonia from New Delhi, and Bernal in Metro Manila looking at President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s first state visit to India.